Let me tell you a story about how I learned that justice real, honest justice isn't some myth you read about in dusty law books. Sometimes it takes getting called a criminal on your own family's land to remind you what you're made of. And sometimes standing your ground means staring down a mob in fuchsia pantsuits and fake federal badges, just to keep what's always been yours. Yeah, you heard right. HOA try to take my lake. Not just the water, but every memory, every silent morning, every single ripple that had ever carried the sound of my uncle's laugh. And they thought a senator would be the easiest target of all. You ever wake up so early it feels like you're the only person alive? That's what it was like standing out on Clearwater Lake at dawn's team, curling off a mug of coffee, the dock creaking under my boots, the owl hooting its last call before day chased it home. This place, 90 acres of glassy water and pine-shadowed banks. It wasn't just property. It was history. My uncle's pride for 40 years now, mine, for better or worse. Most mornings out here are quiet, peaceful in a way city folks don't believe exists anymore. I left engineering behind just to breathe that in, let all the deadlines and office small talk dissolve into trout drifting under the surface. Peace, though that's a delicate thing. And it doesn't last. I barely set my mug down before I heard the crunch of gravel sharp, insistent, like trouble making itself right at home. Then came a voice that could slice bark off a tree. Stop right there. You're trespassing on federal wildlife sanctuary water. That was Mara Kensington, HOA president, hair like golden lacquer, fuchsia pantsuit, so bright it probably scared every fish within a mile. She marched down with two volunteers, Ron, mustache trembling, and Lena, lips pressed so tight she looked like she hadn't smiled since the Nixon administration. Each of them clutching thick binders, environmental protection, federal restrictions, all in fonts meant to look official if you squint hard enough. Mara jabbed a heel into the dirt and announced, "I'm ordering you to vacate this dock while I contact the authorities." So I just sipped my coffee, let the steam rise in the chill, and wished her a good morning. She was already on the phone, calling 911 to report me for violating sanctuary water. It was all theater, but the show was about to get real. Ron piped up, flipping through his binder. "Ma'am, per subsection 12 of federal wetland regulations, you can't occupy restricted water zones without clearance." I looked at him. "Ron, this is my dock. This is my lake." But Mara was ready. "This lake has been reclassified. There were notices. Ignorance is not a defense, Mr. Caldwell." Right then, the county sheriff's truck rumbled down the old access road, sun flashing off the windshield. Mara folded her arms like a cat, knocking glasses off a table. "Good. We'll settle this now." My uncle used to say it and give him a reaction. Sometimes silence is power. So I let Mara talk, let the volunteers pose with their binders, let the sheriff deputy Harlan, a man built like a fence post and tired before sunrise, step out of his truck. "Morning, Ethan," he called out. Before I could answer, Mara stormed up, waving her binder. "Officer, this man is violating federal wildlife sanctuary protections." Harlan squinted. "Ma'am, this here's private property." Mara snapped. "As of last month, Clearwater Lake is under the Environmental Preservation Act. I have documents." Ron and Lena hustled over, feeding her binders like stagehands at a play. Harlan took a page and frowned. "EPA, federal wetland, this is new. Why hasn't the county been notified?" Mara smiled tight. "This region falls under federal jurisdiction now. Notices come from the HOA subcommittee." She actually put her hand on her heart. I stepped off the dock. "Harlan, those aren't federal documents. She probably printed them off some website last night." Mara hissed, "You have no authority to question EPA documentation." "And you," I said, "have no authority to invent it." She bristled. "Ignorance doesn't excuse violations. Your actions are a direct breach." Harlan turned, clearly stuck between reality and the alternate universe Mara lived in. When exactly was this lake reclassified? 34 days ago, she recited, following a preliminary habitat assessment. That's when a voice called from the tree line. Ray Johnson, retired fishing guide and unofficial lake historian, walking through the brush with 2 thermoses. He handed me one and planted himself beside us. Ethan, you ain't the first. She pulled this on the Hendersons and the Matsons. Mara tried to shoo him off, but Ray just grinned. Funny how they both sold their parcels right after she started waving those binders. Mara barked. They didn't want federal trouble. Ray's eyes went flat. They didn't want to be steamrolled. Even the birds got quiet, waiting for the dust to settle. Harlan said, Mara, if this is federal, I'll need to see county filings, state notices. Anything real. She shoved a binder at him again. I pulled a page free, held it up. Look at this seal. That's the Department of Transportation's emblem from 10 years ago. EPA doesn't use that. Ray snorted. Mara stiffened. You have 30 minutes to vacate before I call federal compliance agents. A chill ran down my spine, not because I believed her, but because I finally understood. This wasn't about wetlands or fish or habitat. This was a setup and she'd done it before. I handed Harlan the paper. I inherited this. Lake deeds are clean. No restrictions, no easements, and no federal sanctuary has ever been filed. Check your system. He nodded, voice firmer. Mara's mask cracked just a little. You'll regret challenging this, she hissed. People who resisted learned what happens. Ray leaned close. She's just trying to scare you. Same as the others. Behind Mara, her volunteers looked like they wanted a real federal agent to appear, but no one came. I told Harlan, I'm not leaving. Mara spun, stormed back to her SUV, Ron and Lena in tow. Ray sighed. This ain't over. No, I said, watching him go. It's just beginning. That afternoon, I heard engines more than one. SUVs rolled up my driveway, dust billowing. For an all, out stepped Mara again, this time in a tan uniform, badge and all, looking official if you didn't know better. Her team carried metal stakes, warning signs, clipboards. To anyone watching from a distance, it might have looked legit. Mara announced, per federal code, subsection 9 of the Wetlands Protection Act, we're conducting boundary confirmation and territory assignment. Metal stakes thudded into the ground. Orange tape slashed across my shoreline. Signs, federal wetlands. No entry. Seizure pending. One even had a fake barcode. Ma'am, I said, this is private property. Not anymore, she replied. Your borders have been adjusted. By who? The HOA Environmental Subcommittee, under provisional federal authority. That's not a thing. It is, she snapped. Your refusal to acknowledge it adds to the violations. They were making it up as they went. I kept calm. What species are you protecting? I asked. She didn't even hesitate. The speckled, ridge-beaked heron. I almost laughed. There's no such bird. You're not a biologist. No, but I know the difference between a real regulation and something you typed last night, I said. She got right in my face. Cooperate, or I escalate to federal enforcement. You mean the sheriff? No, higher. She waved her team onward, marking boundaries on a map that had red lines all overdrawn with a marker stretching beyond the lake into the woods. It was all fake, but dangerous, because sometimes lies outrun the truth. They taped off my cabin. Until environmental assessment is complete, you cannot occupy it. You're locking me out of my own house. She just smiled. I walked inside anyway, ignoring their gasps, went to my uncle's old desk, pulled out a steel briefcase documents no one knew I had, the ones that didn't just prove I owned the lake, but proved who I was. Mara demanded to know what I was carrying. Something that'll end this, I said. She scoffed. You think paperwork will save you? Not paperwork. Proof. She was about to learn. The next morning, fog clung to the lake. Mara came back, this time with a convoy 3 Range Rovers, a black pickup, and a moving truck with Crystal Preserve Environmental Analysis Unit stenciled on the side. She stepped out with a stranger, her husband, Thomas, ex-lawyer, confidence oozing. They tried the same trick-official-looking documents, buzzwords, more fake maps, color-coded zones. Ray whispered, "They didn't see this coming." Thomas threatened me with federal sanctuary assessment violations. I told him straight, "I helped write the laws you're pretending to cite." Mara blanched. Ray and I flipped through the documents, found the real bond purchase agreements offering to buy my property at 40% value after confirmed violations. They weren't trying to protect the land, they were trying to steal it. That was the play's care, people. Stage violations, force a sale, cash in. I held up my briefcase. None of you ever faced someone like me before. What I have is evidence and the law. That night, I opened the case, spread the real documents across my desk, and called in a favor. When you don't ask lightly. The next morning, Mara tried one last show of force agents in plastic hazmat suits, cones, more tape. But then the rumble came, not engines, but rotors chopping through the fog. A matte black helicopter landed on my dock. Out stepped Agent Naomi Parker, Environmental Crimes Unit, badge shining. She sized up the mess. Mara tried to talk. Parker stopped her cold. "I'll need a rundown of what was staged here." Ray and I explained the fake raid, the planted evidence, the forged paperwork. Parker looked at Mara. "Show me your credentials." Mara blustered about federal alignment. Parker didn't buy a word. "That's not a federal entity." Thomas tried to intervene. Parker shut him down. Then she inspected the scene, found the sample they'd buried, the forged seals, the purchase agreements. "You impersonated federal authority. That's a felony," she said. Then she turned to me. "Senator Caldwell, would you like to explain your role?" I nodded. "Primary author, Anti-HOA Protection Act." Mara finally snapped. "This is political. He's lying." Parker cut her off. "You are one sentence from obstruction." Real federal agents rolled up SUVs, radios, the whole 9 yards. Mara's crew scattered. Rodriguez, lead agent, gathered the evidence, read the charges: fraud, conspiracy, attempted land seizure, impersonation of federal officers. "You'll be under arrest in about 60 seconds, he said. Mara tried to run. Didn't get far. They cuffed her, cuffed Thomas. Ray grinned, tipping his hat. Been wanting to tell somebody about these two for a long time. As the agents packed up the last of the fake props, the wind pushed the hazard tape into the lake kite, floated a second, then sank. Fabrication down, truth rising, justice finally finding a home. 6 months passed. Seasons changed. Families came back, land restored, restitution paid. The lake never looked better. I stood with Ray on the dock as the sheriff handed me a folder: federal recognition, clean water certification. "Your uncle would be proud," Ray said. I watched kids laughing across the water Caldwells back in their cabin. Maybe some places are too pure to be stolen. My phone buzzed a call for help. Another HOA trying to pull the same stunt, different state. Ray caught my look. "And you're going to help, aren't you?" I nodded, looking over the lake, knowing this wasn't an ending, just the beginning of the next fight. If you've ever stood your ground for what's right, drop a yes in the comments. If you believe justice still means something, hit subscribe. There's more coming in, you're not alone.